Good morning, YouTube. It's the last day of September and an absolutely gorgeous day in western central New Jersey. Once again, we'll be looking at the T-4XC as in Charlie Drake transmitter. You all remember, if you saw my last video on this unit, what kind of shape it was in. I just want to tell you what I've done to straighten this thing out. If you look back here, you can see that all the potentiometers are back where they're supposed to be, and they're not broken anymore. I'll show you what I did with that. I straightened out the back deck the best I could with a pair of long nose pliers. This does not come off. So what I had to do is take all of these off and essentially reassemble them. It's no surprise to anyone that knows anything about the Drake line that the C line, they cut a lot of corners on it. So this chassis is very flimsy, and it's prone to be bent easily. What happened was this thing took a good shot to the front and the back. It completely knocked these pots out of the hole and essentially dismantled them. Well, I was able to put them back together and test them, and they're just fine. So I just reassembled them and put them back on the unit. You couldn't do that in the old days. You'd have Clarostat and Allen Bradley. They'd make quality potentiometers and very sturdy. But these things here were very cheaply made, and thank God for that, because they were so cheaply made. I was able to essentially reassemble them and put them back in back on the unit. So that worked out good. Worked out very good. Now I'm going to turn this over. Now you remember how badly banged up this was. What I did here, you could still see it's a little crooked here. But what I did was I took a piece of metal and I put it across the two corner points, the one on top and the one on the bottom. And I put it straight across the corners, and I used it as a leverage point, and I used my pliers to bend this. You see how easily this metal bends? I used it to bend it out and straighten it out the best I can. Now, is it perfect? No, it's not. That wasn't going to happen, but I wanted to get it much better than what it was, and actually it is. So that helped. Also, I ran into another problem that, well, not so much of a problem, but it makes sense. This thing was hit very hard from the back and the front. You'll notice that it's got very few tubes in it. These are spare tubes I had. Every tube in this transmitter was broken. The filaments were broken during the tumble that this thing took. So none of the tubes was worth anything. I think the only tube that survived was a 6AU6. I think this was it right here in this position. Every other tube was no good because the filament broke when it hit the floor or the sidewalk or whatever the hell it hit. So there you go. So I was going to replace all those tubes anyway, so no foul there. Also, I talked about the VFO, or the PTO in Drake speak. So you can see now, I just put a handy knob on there just so I could maneuver it around. As you can see right now, all the ball bearings are there, and they're all neat and squared away. But I had a problem, and I didn't realize it. When I got this rig, the tuning knob was gone. So I just assumed that somebody wanted the tuning knob to sell it on eBay or put it on another radio. Well, I think it was smashed, because what had happened was this took a hit from the front here, and it transferred that energy back along this screw point here, and it came in contact with this screw down here, this Allen screw. And what that does is sets the tension on this knob, and it also holds this tuning shaft in a straight line. If this isn't perfectly lined up with the with this adjusting screw, if you try to put ball bearings in here, they'll keep falling out of the other side. It'll seem like the hole is enlarged or lopsided. I didn't catch that, but after a few tries I realized that this casing here, you could still see it is bent a little bit. I had to straighten this casing out to the point where it comes in perfectly, or as straight as I can get it. But what you want, in essence, let me pause for a second. Okay, what you want in essence is this. You want this, this is the lead screw from the tuning knob. This is the plate that it passes through. This plate will run along the entire track of this unit here. And it has to be perfectly lined up with the center of that adjusting screw. What you use this screw for is if the tuning is too hard, you loosen this screw and it lightens the effort that you have to use to tune the radio. But if this is off, if this is cockeyed and it's going to one way or the other, what happens is, you may not think it's a big deal, but what happens down here, where it goes through the case, it gets cockeyed. It gets shot to one side or the other. It's no longer in the middle, and when you try to put the ball bearings in, they just fall out. So I had to take a long pair of pliers and carefully bend this structure here. Now, it's not as hard as it looks, but it's not that fragile either. Don't go nuts on it. Just bend it in little increments until you get that lead screw down there to line up as perfectly as you can get it with that tightness adjusting screw on the top there. Because if you don't do that, all the ball bearings will fall out of this hole here. It's very aggravating. Also, I found another way to put the ball bearings in that race. I have my handy dandy wooden dowel here. I sharpened it in a pencil sharpener, and what I do is I stick the end of it in some kind of lubricant, like the stuff I used, the Loctite stuff. I can't remember off the top of my head what it's called. But even if all you have is Vaseline, petroleum jelly, you could use that. And then you could come in here and place the ball bearings in here. And as you put them in, you could shift them around until they fall into place. And if this is perfectly lined up here, you pull this forward and tighten it, and you'll be fine. All the ball bearings will stay exactly where they are. This is a very neat tool, by the way, for troubleshooting inside a radio too, if you don't want to use a metallic tool. It's a wooden dowel about the thickness of a number 2 pencil. So I really am using this a lot for different things. So that was the biggest problem I had here. Once I aligned that, it was fine. That's pretty much all I got to show you today. I just wanted to show you what I've been doing with this. And so far I have not fired this up because I'm still working on the VFO, trying to get it to track the way it should. But as you could see, if you looked at my other videos, this thing is in much better shape now than it was then. And I'm really proud of this back here, to be honest with you. Because these potentiometers were really cheap crap, it actually helped me. Because if it was the old Allen Bradley jobs and the Clarostat jobs that were built to last, they probably would have broken instead of just fell apart. So actually it worked out good. I'm glad they cheaped out on that. So there you go. But it's looking good, and I'm hoping to get it on the air soon. So that's it for now. Stay well, be safe until we talk again. Take care, very best wishes. We'll see you soon.